And when I agreed to do this, I didn't know we were releasing it. So, but I try to put Prince William County in national context of very rapid growth of Latinos, and then try to focus in on some of the changes that are going on here. And I'll preface it by saying I'm really not an expert on Prince William County, but I've spent a bit of time looking at the numbers. The rapid growth has been fueled by immigration. What's interesting now is that's changing a bit in that actually more of the growth of the Hispanic population is coming from fertility for the first time in about 4 decades, but that's a byproduct of the immigration. What has been going on is a geographic diversification of the population, and that's really what we're seeing here, mainly driven by employment opportunities and it has its roots back in the California recession of the early 90s when a lot of Latinos moved out of California. I'll talk a little about some of the local impacts, particularly population growth, ethnic diversity, and I've taken a little bit of a look at schools and crime, and I'll just refer you to a study that came out about a year ago that I did with some former colleagues at the Urban Institute looking at tax payments in the DC metropolitan area. This slide's actually a bit dated. The latest number from the Census Bureau puts it at close to 47 million now. About 15.5% of the U.S. population is tripled. This population has tripled since 1980. And passed the Latino population passed the black population about 2001. Immigration is driving this. That has an impact in the short run on the characteristics of the population and certainly has an impact on the growth. But we are seeing more growth from the second generation now. I'm going to skip this. This looks at immigrants, not Latinos. Now, a significant share of the adult Latino population are immigrants, and a significant share of immigrants are Latinos, but the two are not exactly the same. What we've seen is a dramatic growth in the last generation or so in the number of immigrants in the country, that we're at an all-time high. As recently as 1970, the immigrant population was actually decreasing in size. In 1960, 1970, the immigrant population was relatively old. It was almost all European and decreasing in numbers. That changed with the 1965 Immigration Act and reversed this trend. The immigrant population is now largely Latino and Asian. It is relatively young, and it is growing rapidly. The percentage of immigrants in the population is not at an all-time high. It's approaching the high levels that we maintained as a country for about 50 years, from 1870 to 1920. About 1/7 of the population was made up of immigrants. We're approaching that, but we're not quite there yet. Where are the Latinos found? Well, historically, there was a core area in the southwestern United States, California, Texas, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, with other large numbers in the New York metropolitan area, the Chicago area, and the Miami area. And historically, they represented about 85% of all Latinos. In the 90s, that began to change, a movement out of the core, and once that movement started, we began to see shifts in the immigration patterns, so that California was no longer getting quite as many immigrants as it had gotten before, and those immigrants were going to the new destinations, which are, I will show you, around the country. That migration builds up a momentum that draws more people into those areas. And we're actually seeing that now as the share of migrants going into these new areas, new immigrants going into these new areas. used to be about 10% of all the new immigrants. It's now about 20% of all the new immigrants. This is in your handout, but the key here is the numbers over on the right, that between 1990 and 2005, the Hispanic population outside of this historic core went from 3 million to 9 million. So the numbers in the new areas tripled, in essence. And here are the new areas. These are states where the Hispanic population more than tripled between 1980 and 2005 and had significant numbers. And you'll see Virginia is one of those states. North Carolina and Georgia really lead the way here. The Latino population of Georgia is about 10 times what it was in 1980. This is a group of states in the Midwest and the Southeast largely that also experience rapid growth in percentage terms, but the numbers involved are a bit smaller, so these states don't have quite as many, but the rate of growth has been just as rapid. And it's these states that got very few Hispanics. I expect actually Louisiana to change a bit with some of the new settlement patterns around the recovery from Katrina. Now, interestingly, this is a group of states that got large numbers of new immigrants, and it's pretty much the same. And the dark states here are states where the immigrant population is largely undocumented. So if you put all this together, what you see is that the growth of the Hispanic population in a lot of these areas was driven by immigration and largely by undocumented immigration.